We will be continuing with the LCA, and so here some are the objectives for what we need to do LCA. First of all is the identification of the opportunities to improve environmental performance, and secondly to inform the decision makers. Thirdly, it will help in selection of relevant indicators of environmental performance, and fourthly, it will help in the marketing. So eco-label is one of the examples. So that means the product will be eco-labeled. Once it's eco-labeled, that means it is uh, a sustainable product, and it is going to help out environment in different ways. That's why it will capture a broader market. What could be the different steps? And I think it's again very much self-explanatory. If you go into the details of ISO 14040, you can get more information about the different steps, like including the principles and framework, and the different requirements for conducting an LCA, and then also covering the life cycle inventory, and then after this life cycle assessment guideline, we can further check the scope of ISO 14040. So it will be containing general information on the goal and scope of LCA, LCI, LCIA phase, interpretation phase, reporting and critical review limitations, relationship between phases, and conditions for use of value choices and optional elements. So these are again different phases which will be observed. LCI is actually the life cycle inventory, and LCIA is the life cycle impact assessment phase. Here are the phases of an LCA, including goal and scope, life cycle inventory, LCI, life cycle impact assessment, and then its interpretation. All these are the LCA phases. So as far as first phase is concerned, about the goal, so goal statement is the first component of an LCA and guides much of the subsequent analysis. Earlier we talked about goals, that it will define what is the purpose of conducting this LCA, whether it is for improvements or simply modifications are required, or we need a completely new concept, or we simply need to replace that product. So whatsoever it may be, it will be declared as goal. So goal must state intended use, reasons for use, audience, whether comparative and disclosed to public. So these are something about goal. And for scope provides background information, details, methodological choices, and layout report format. So it will be, again, as earlier we explained, it will be related with the different units which will be involved. So how much data is required? So regarding the product systems, functions of the system, functional units, system boundary, allocation procedures, impact categories, assessment methods, and interpretation type, all these things will be defined under the heading of scope. So as far as phase 2 and 3 regarding the life cycle inventory and life cycle impact assessment are concerned. It is about the data collection, the most important thing. We need to gather as much information as we can from for the uh, raw materials, and how they are being used, what kind of waste they are producing. So as much input and output data as possible is collected, can be presented in a report or kept private. So then life cycle impact assessment, it's about the conversion of inventory data into environmental impact potentials. So for example, we are getting the information about the raw material, that we are getting it from the crops. So then we will be defining how much there is possibility of producing waste from that crop. For example, we are having a textile raw material. So what can be our textile raw material? The most important thing is cotton. So in which form we are getting cotton, how cotton would be used in different operations and processes, and what kind of waste will be produced. So this is something which will be conducted in this phase. And phase 4 is about interpretation, continually ongoing process. We earlier talked about the iteration process. So it will be like helping one phase, and then getting this, using this data in another phase, and continuously iterating, repeating the process of conducting LCA for getting more and more data, and getting better and better interpretations. So some of the limitations. Uh, so it is not a complete assessment of all the environmental issues, because only those identified in the goal and scope are considered. So it is again self-explanatory, because we are bound by the environmental policy of the organization. So up to what limit we are concerned. As we talked about textile raw materials, as we talked about cotton, so we did not talk about the influence of these raw materials in the long run. We only talked it with the reference of our industrial requirements. So if you talk about the different processes, there are some of the wastes which are in solid form, some are in the form of wastewater. We are only concerned about that type of waste which is recyclable. We are not talking about that waste which is going to be disposed in the landfill, and what will be happening next, how it will be depleting our other resources, how soil will be contaminated, how groundwater will be contaminated. These are normally not considered to be a goal of an industrial of an industry. So again we have some limitation, but as a researcher, if you conduct a research, then we will be including all the factors which are affecting. LCA is only focusing the product and its sustainability. We are only talking about with reference to our industry. We are only talking with reference to our market. So however, environmental impacts are involved there, but it is not covering all the aspects of the environment. So this was something about the limitations, and here is the list of the terms in ISO 14040, and here is the definitions of some of the terminologies. I think you can go through these things on your own.